You'll indulge me. It goes like this. As you lay down your head, you won't sleep very well. You're always waiting to hear the next bell. When the time comes, you forget the fear. There is a calling that only you hear. To save a life, you would give your own, and there is never enough gratitude shown. The risk, the dangers, no one can tell, but it's always there and you handle it well. With courage and caring in our time of despair, we feel safer knowing you will be there. Depended on by all, and we all agree, nothing compares to the security of knowing you're just a phone call away and you keep us safe day after day. You don't ask for thanks, but this much is true. You give us yourself, and for this we thank you. May I call upon Chief Michael Mansfield of the Andover Fire Department to begin our presentations of the firefighters of the year. Chief, if you would.
About giving Rick Blaine and Robin and the whole entire Exchange Club team another round of applause for putting this event together. Good evening to all of you in attendance. I would also like to thank Scott Emerson from Wheelabrator for all his work and the sponsorship of this wonderful annual event. I'd like to give special thanks again to the Awards Committee and the Greater Lawrence Exchange Club for their hard work and dedication to planning and supporting this endeavor. I would also like to congratulate each and every one of this year's award recipients and their families for a job well done. The most difficult part of this event for the Andover Fire Rescue Command staff was meeting and poring over the many reports we had compiled in a folder over the last year to determine who would receive this year's Exchange Club Firefighter of the Year award. The event and recipients received a unanimous vote by the command staff to present to you this evening. The difficulty in the decision-making process was due to the fact that over the last 12 months, there have been many emergency situations that crews responded to that made a difference in someone's life. Whether it was administering an EpiPen to a small child suffering from anaphylaxis, or administering a shock to someone who's in cardiac arrest, with that patient leaving the hospital several days later with a good prognosis for a full recovery to the event that I am about to describe to you tonight. The reason the personnel were chosen for this special award this year was because of the fact that this emergency situation was one that you may or may not ever experience in your career. It was an incident that took out of the box thinking and the use of many different skill sets to create a positive outcome. Above all, it took many from several different agencies to work as one team to pull off this rescue. On February 13, 2013, 11:38 hours, Andover Fire Rescue Units responded, as well as the Lawrence General Hospital paramedics, to an incident where the initial report indicated a man was trapped on an 18-wheeler at 43 Lupine Road. On arrival at 11:43, the first arriving units found that the patient was indeed trapped under an 18-wheel lowboy trailer with a piece of heavy machinery on it that weighed approximately 150,000 pounds. Yes, 150,000 pounds. The patient's left leg was pinned directly under the driver's side wheels of the tractor. The patient was standing between the tractor and the trailer connecting air lines when the unit started to roll on top of him and ended up diving into the location that the units responding found him in. The patient was conscious the entire time fire and EMS rescue units were attempting to extricate him. The patient's left leg was seriously injured and there was a large amount of blood loss to the patient despite efforts to control bleeding. 2 heavy-duty rotating records were requested and dispatched to the scene in the event that the initial plans from Andover Fire Rescue had failed. The fire and EMS crews had to design and implement a safe method in which to lift the massive piece of equipment off the patient to be able to free him from under the tractor. Cribbing, large high-pressure airbags, and mats were placed under the rear differential of the tractor in an effort to lift the unit off the patient's leg. The airbags were pneumatically inflated, but the payload was too heavy to lift. Crews began to seek alternative methods to get the truck off the patient. Where the patient was still conscious, rescue crews began a dialogue with him to obtain information as to how might be the best way to get the truck lifted off of him. The ALS crew from Lawrence General began EMS intervention and also crawled under the truck to begin administering pain medications intravenously, as well as some other medical interventions. Cody's 2 rotating wreckers arrived on scene and were setting up on either side of the tractor-trailer unit in the event that they were needed to perform the lift of the vehicle itself. A medical evac helicopter was requested to transport the patient to a Boston hospital at 11:50. Andover Fire Rescue Units Engine 3 and Ambulance 2 responded to the designated landing zone at the Hewlett-Packard facility located in the parking lot of 165 Daskin Road to ensure the helicopter could land safely. Boston Medflight helicopter landing at that landing zone at 12:15. The patient was able to communicate with rescue crews and instructed them as to how to get some of the weight off the trailer and its heavy machinery cargo off of the tractor to be able to lift the unit. One firefighter got into the tractor and followed the patient's instructions step by step and was able to engage the PTO and raise the trailer with its 150,000-pound cargo, just enough to safely place wood cribbing underneath it to keep that lift up. At this point, the pneumatic airbags were able to lift the tractor off the patient enough to load him onto a backboard and begin a full assessment of his injuries. The extrication was complete at 12:06, only 27 minutes after the first units arrived on scene. The patient was immediately assessed and loaded into a waiting ambulance where a more detailed secondary assessment of the patient began, as well as treatment and transport to the helicopter landing zone. LGH paramedics and the Andover Fire Rescue EMS crews worked together throughout the transport to the landing zone in preparation of the patient to the flight to a Boston hospital. The patient was transferred to the Medflight crew at 12:19, and the helicopter departed 3 minutes later to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. The patient underwent many hours of surgery and lost his left leg due to the severity of the injuries. However, the patient's willingness to move forward and persevere through many long and difficult months of physical therapy and learning how to walk again with a prosthetic leg has him back working and driving the same type of tractor-trailer unit he was trapped under a little more than a year ago. This extrication would not have been a success unless all of the on-duty Andover Fire Rescue Units and personnel, along with those who responded, Lawrence General Hospital, Andover Police Department, Cody's Record Service, all worked together, many of them, as a team, as one team, to ensure this incident had a very positive outcome. Before I call the members of Andover Fire Rescue that assisted in this rescue up to receive their recognition, I would first like to call, if I have the blessing of playing, first I'd like to call up Mr. Marty O'Connell and his wife Lisa to help us out with the presentation of the awards to the podium to assist in handing them out. For their efforts and great teamwork under Andover Fire Rescue nominates all the personnel who were on duty on Unit 1 and responded to this incident. Marty, come on up. Lisa. I'm going to call the personnel up by station. Unit 1, Central Station, Deputy Chief James Dolan, Lieutenant Terrence Rattel, Firefighter Clint Patullo, Firefighter Tom Kennedy, Firefighter Michael Terry, Firefighter EMT Robert Murphy, and Firefighter EMT Kevin Farragut.
Is it 1 o'clock? Is it 1 o'clock?
It's the one. No, there's one for each station.
For each station.